informative for you. I just took a few screen grabs. I was saying to Declan earlier of what it actually looks like when you go onto the site. So the first step obviously is registering your school. So the website address is right here. I'll be sharing this presentation with you afterwards anyway. So you'll be able to copy and paste that into your browser and you can go in to register. And this is what it looks like. You have to have an official email address. So I just use my own school one. Obviously there's a CAPTCHA thing there. Tick the box, click sign up, and then you're in basically. So the next thing you do is once you've logged in, you'll get this screen here. So the first thing you have to do is you have to select what category you are. So obviously upper secondary is the one that I would advise you to select because you're going to try and get as broad a range as possible of the students to participate in your survey. The fourth step, as was mentioned, you have to enter how many participants, so how many school leaders, how many teachers and how many students will be participating in the survey. Now, be careful about this because, as was mentioned, there is a minimum number required in order to meet that threshold that Selfie requires for the survey to be an accurate depiction of what leaders in the school think, what teachers in the school think, and what the students think. So you input the figures there, it's very straightforward. Next thing you get this screen here, which is customize your questionnaire. And one of the questions that teachers have, or ICT coordinators or digital leaders, whatever your title is can I actually customize it? Can I leave things out and add things in and so on? The answer is you can to an extent. The reason being is that, and this is the next screen, so when you go in to customize your questionnaire, you get this screen. Your core statements are exactly that. They're core, they're not optional, you can't leave any out, they all have to be left in because these core statements are applicable regardless of your school setup, okay? The optional statements are ones that you can tick the box and include in your survey if you so wish. And then you can add in some statements that you feel you'd like to get your leaders, teachers and students' opinion on regarding your own school's context. Okay, so the optional questions there, this is just again a screen grab. So this one here about leadership, time to review digital learning. You know, if this is relevant to your school, if that is a feature of practice in your school, that, you know, the leadership does offer time for teachers to reflect on how they're utilising digital tools in teaching and learning or in their classrooms. Okay. When you want to add a custom statement, again, I just took a screen grab. It gives you this here. So this is what your survey respondents will be faced with. So agreeing and disagreeing or not applicable, and which category of respondent do you want it to apply to? Do you want all the school leaders just to answer this one? Do you want just teachers to answer this one? Or do you want perhaps all three to answer it? Okay. Then the next one obviously is selecting your dates, and as has been mentioned, the cutoff is the 15th of April. You have to be careful when you select your dates, because once you've selected your dates, you are then brought into this screen, and it says here, note, changes to the initial setup are no longer possible, because you've now kind of set it in stone that this is your survey. You can't go back in and rejig it around. So before you click select dates, you can save it as a draft, you can come back into it. You can make sure that everybody's happy on your, if you have a digital committee or if you're just working with the management of the school. Once they're happy with it, then what you would do is click on select dates, and as I say, you have 2 weeks. That window is not negotiable. You can't go in and say, well, actually, can I extend it over 3 weeks? No, it's literally a 2-week window in which everyone has to respond. So this last screen grab here, these are the links to the Selfie questionnaires. It's just this little, it looks like sheets of paper. So there's 3 separate surveys. So what I did in my school, we're an Office 365 school. So what I did for the school leader survey, I just shared it within our staff team for all of the, our middle management team. So all the B post, A post and management answered that one. The teachers, again, that was in the general staff team. And then obviously for students, we have year groups within their own year group team, if you like, if you're an Office 365 school. If you don't use Office 365 and you're thinking, oh, well, we're Google, or we don't actually use any of those virtual learning environments. How will I share this survey? You can simply send an email, or you can, if your school has VSware, you can use that, or you can use a school app if your school has a school app. So it depends which way you want to. So you simply click there, that will copy it to your clipboard, and then you paste in the link to send off the survey. So when the survey window has elapsed, you will then get your results here. So you click here first. That's the results tab, and then you'll see your report. So obviously you have to select from the drop down menu whichever session is applicable. Usually it'll be the one that's in bold. It kind of almost tells you which one you have to pick, and then you'll see your survey results appear in blue down here. So you click into your results and you get a lovely selection, full color, lots of different all of the different core competencies and statements. You get full color picture regarding each of the statements. Now, what I've done here in this slide is I've scrolled all the way down to the end of my school selfie report. This one I did last year with the teachers and the staff here and the students. And at the very end of your report, you can select download. Now, you can download it in a variety of languages. And actually, I should have said that to begin with. That just, can you give me 1 second? There's somebody at the door. Apologies. What is going on? No. Sorry about that. I don't know what was happening there. I'm a yearhead, so sometimes things happen. Knocks come to the door. I'm sure you understand. Anyway,
we'll edit that one out.
Yeah, as I was saying, you can download the report in a number of different languages, and likewise, if you have a number of languages being used by students in your school, you can show them how from the menu on the top of the screen you can change the language, and they can answer the survey in their mother tongue, and which is absolutely fantastic. And you know, it makes the survey that bit more, you know, personal to them. Okay, so I'm moving on now. So we've done our survey, we've got our results. What do I do next? So the first thing, obviously, you download it. And here, this is a screen grab from, as I told you, lovely, colourful feedback of the levels within each of the competencies. So you can see here that the core competencies, some of which were a lot stronger than others, okay? And you can see here, the blue is the leaders and the pink are the teachers. So you can see that leaders had a stronger view or agreed more with this particular statement, and teachers didn't agree as strongly. And it's quite interesting to examine the differing opinions between two cohorts, if you like. So just down here, I just mentioned to you, these are PNG images like a JPEG. So what I did in my school was I wanted to provide a snapshot to staff and to students of different areas that provided interesting material to think on. And I just collated it into a poster and I hung them up. Obviously, it's nice to send on an email, send a copy of the report to everybody. But how many people are going to sit down and read the whole report? You know, so you have to kind of think, okay, I'm just going to provide everybody with a snapshot of what I found out. So what I would do, though, in terms of being the coordinator or the digital lead in the school, you'd share the summary with your digital committee and management prior to your first planning meeting. If you had been using your digital strategy as one of your strands of your school self-evaluation the previous year, You might briefly, as is in the second point there, provide feedback to management on last year's focus and which domain was chosen and how successful the efforts were last year, if that's of relevance to your school's context. So during your first planning meeting, what I would do is I would discuss and reveal this to the digital committee. You'd present the major weaknesses. So you can use comparisons of results per user group section. Okay, so this is within the online tool. Okay, you can dip in and out of this. You invite the committee to select 2 areas which they believe warrant attention as the focus for this school year. So perhaps areas which were identified by more than one user group. So I have circled here all 3 user groups identified this particular area. So as it happened, this particular area was student feedback to other students on their learning. So as a result of that, obviously, we had to build a plan around, okay, how are we going to encourage students to offer feedback to other students in their own classroom? How are we going to coordinate this, and what tools are we going to use? So that was one idea. So during our second planning meeting, what we did was we dug out our copy of our the digital learning framework, and the teaching and learning domains were the ones that we chose. We selected 2 specific standards which matched with the areas of weakness identified within the selfie report, because it made sense, because our school community had identified these as areas of weakness. Therefore, we matched up the standards within the domains from the digital learning framework with what the selfie survey had revealed to us. Obviously, then you go away and discuss with individual committee members what they wanted to look at in terms of their the current or forthcoming year's focus of the digital learning framework for as part of the SSE. So which domain they wanted to focus in on, and within each domain, which standard they wanted to focus in on as well. So it's important to remember, actually, I just want to go back one slide. So you see here in domain 2, learner experiences, and let's say for argument's sake, there's 1 or 2 or 3 different standards within this domain 2 learner experiences. Some schools, unfortunately, are of the notion that you have to do all of them within each domain. You don't. You simply have to identify which one. So let's say it's this one, and let's say we wanted to achieve this one particular. So we wanted to move from effective practice to highly effective. So we just choose that one there. And likewise with the teaching and learning teachers' individual practice, we found that we wanted to work just on this one, and we only chose this particular part of the statement of effective practice to focus in on, because we felt that by focusing in on a huge amount here, that it was actually going to be counterproductive. So it's perfectly okay to do that. Okay, so once we've identified which ones we're going to look at, we agree a plan of action to meet the standards chosen. So we have to think in small steps. So with regard to my own school's context, the one about students giving each other constructive feedback, we chose to use the OneNote collaboration space in order to facilitate this. And we had within each subject area, we had at least one module or one element of learning that was going on in that subject area, wherein students would share their work or share their material in the collaboration space, and then they were allowed or invited to, I should say, provide feedback to each other. So that was one way in which we encourage students to use digital tools to provide feedback. And finally, step 7. Obviously, you have to update your digital strategy for the forthcoming year. You have to figure out how you're going to implement the plan. And obviously, as you are no doubt aware, you have your 6-step process. So you're gathering the evidence, which is obviously the selfie tool, analyze and make judgments. This is when you sit down and you look at the results. You focus in on which areas you're going to work on for the forthcoming year. You put your plan into action, you monitor your plan, and obviously you start all over again. So that's essentially what we did. But just to say, before the end of the academic year, now this is optional, but it's actually quite nice to do, because you can resurvey using the selfie tool, and you can actually compare the 2 reports. So it'll give you the same kind of questions, but between the beginning of the year and the end of the year, your school community might have realised, well, actually, we're not as weak when it comes to, for example, the feedback from student to student, peer to peer, and that'll be reflected when you resurvey. So that's essentially my presentation. If anybody has any questions whatsoever, you're more than welcome to fire away. And I'll give my email address to Declan if anybody wants to send me an email or anything like that to ask me any questions.